Hey everybody, it's been a while. I've been busy since the new year. I'm going to do my best to not be distracted by people outside my window because it's a holiday here in the United States. It's Martin Luther King Jr. Day. And yeah, and there's kids out of school, and so I'm just like, oh my gosh, there's noise. Tries not to be distracted. Okay, so I mean, even if I close my window or my blinds, I'd still be. I mean, my window's closed, but if I close my blinds, it would still be like I can hear them. Anyway, I'm here to do a book bit where I'm going to be talking about two books that I've read in recent times and finished. I'm actually reading two other books at the same time that are fiction, and that doesn't count like any nonfiction reading I'm doing. And my nonfiction reading is really more like continued disability studies readings and language, so linguistics, particularly Japanese and Italian, although I am trying to get back more of my Spanish because it's really awful. And please don't ever don't ever stop speaking a language that you grew up with. Like, I didn't have Spanish as my primary, but I grew up using it off and on with people at school, and then some of my family being around it, right? Even if I didn't use it. So, yeah, just trying to get it back. But Japanese and Italian is different, so yeah. Anyway, so I'm here to talk about two books. They have similar themes, and if my dog keeps barking, it's also because, again, there are children outside, and my dog is ancient, and he's like, get off my lawn, kind of thing. So he's kind of like me. Anyway, you would have never guessed that I worked at Build-A-Bear, but I did. I don't mind it in the store. I just am like, when I'm at home, I want to rest. So I'm just like, I'm off the clock, go away. Love you, no. So these two books have some similar content. I don't have ADHD. These books both have to do with the interesting tension between, and I didn't do this on purpose, just the thing that happened. Both of these books have to do with the tension between Christianity and folklore beliefs, and or, paganism, right, that came before then. So, before Christianity arrived. So it's pretty fascinating because this one I'm pretty late to the party on. The Winter Night trilogy has been out for a while. I've been wanting to read it forever. And it has to do with Russian folklore. Okay, so Vasya and the frost demon, basically. Yeah, and her childhood and the things that happen there. and and then you have Maud. You have Maud and her father in, is it Essex? No, it is not Essex. It's Suffolk. It's because it says Edwardians, so I probably thought of E and then was like, the letter E. No, it's Edwardian Suffolk, so it's in England. Okay, so one of these has to do with more like English folklore and folk beliefs, and then Russian folklore and folk beliefs. Okay, so it's pretty interesting. Both books have female protagonists, you could say, and both of them have to do with their childhoods growing up. When I originally was going to read Wakenhyrst, I believe it's Wakenhyrst. It's not, and it's Wackenhurst, I'm sorry, but I'm pretty sure it's Wakenhurst. When I first went to go read this, I was in Glasgow when I saw it, so like the end of last summer, and my first trip out of the United States. I was at Waterstones in Glasgow, and I saw this because they actually have a Gothic section in their bookstores. And I really enjoyed it when I read it, finally. But when I looked at it, I was kind of like, wait, like, there's going to be, like, journal entries, and I was a little nervous because there's books that do journal entries as being part of the main narrative well, or a side narrative well, and then there's ones that don't. So, but when my friend mailed this to me for Christmas, Yule, and I opened it, I was very excited because I remembered seeing this and I was like, oh my god! And it is from there because, oh, look at that. We got pounds. So they went ahead and brought it back across the pond for me. And it has to do with like a medieval painting about the Last Judgment, basically. Maud's father owns Wakenhyrst, right? This estate, this manor. And there's the fen, so this this kind of, it's not really, it's marshy kind of. Well, anyway, so yeah, there's natural bits of their land that they own and things that servants live on and other things like that, or caretakers. And there's a bunch of superstition and other stuff that goes on in there. What really captures your attention when you start reading this is that there's a murder that took place. And so it's basically this person coming in to investigate what really happened and Maud retelling the story from childhood. So it's pretty neat. Again, the father, is his name Edmund or Edward? I think it's Edmund. Again, I read these I finished reading these quite a few weeks ago, so my brain's like, wait, which book am I talking about? But I think pretty sure it's Edmund. That he ended up, he's a medieval historian, okay, so that's what he does, and he ended up discovering a medieval painting in their village, and all the things that come from there, like him starting to see little devils everywhere, and it gets really weird, and I like it. If you're kind of, he's very like buttoned down too. Like he's one of those characters that, well, he's not really buttoned down, but he passes as being very buttoned down, right? And her father, he's just not really. He's quite frankly an asshole. He's terrible. He's a terrible human being. Okay. And then as the story goes along, it just becomes more apparent, and you're just like, wow. Okay then. So, but Maud is definitely one of those classical kind of like, I am the plain girl, kind of trope, but it doesn't feel tropey. Like you recognize it, but you're like, nah, this is believable. Like it's fine. And it fits nicely. And I believe like the way they wove in the story about the saint that heard the voices, and that being the thing that became the painting of the Last Judgment that they call the Wakenhyrst Doom painting, and how it gets recovered and put back and reinstated in like their local little church and everything is really interesting. And then how her dad goes to visit the painting. I love things that have to do with paintings that get weird. So, I mean, totally different. But one of my favorite books is The Picture of Dorian Gray. So, yeah. It's definitely not that kind of tale as far as there is no homoeroticism in here. However, there is definitely some things going on. Again, her father's kind of a bastard. Don't worry, it's not to her. Thank goodness. But it's, typical, I'm having an affair kind of things. So, yeah, it's weird, but it's wonderfully weird, and it's by, again, Michelle Paver. I actually didn't say that before, so it's by Michelle Paver. If it's Paver, I'm sorry. I always hate that, like, language. Sometimes you're just like, is this or this? Do I pronounce this way or this way? So, good. If you're interested in how a fen, a rural kind of area, well, it's a rural area, on an estate can come to haunt somebody, and kind of the intersectionality between Christianity and folklore, and somebody trying to be like, oh, I'm so upstanding, and then being total nit, and other things like that, it's pretty neat. I also really enjoyed the fact that they had love charms, even though I really don't normally like that kind of thing. Because they mentioned like folk beliefs and love charms. That's what I'm just going to say. They're pagan beliefs. They're old pagan beliefs. Pagan is not a dirty word. And so yeah, it's neat, especially since we're coming up on spring and one of the Sabbats for some of my witchy friends out there. So yeah, it's basically about solving a murder and knowing what really happened, and it gets very strange. And I do appreciate the fact that I felt like that she left it fairly ambiguous as to whether or not it was really a haunting, or whether or not it was all, it was kind of a collective nervous breakdown type thing. I personally am in the first camp because it's just more fun that way. It's more interesting, not more fun. It's more interesting that way. But I do think that's an interesting touch. So it's a Gothic novel. Again, it takes place in Edwardian Suffolk, so English. This one, again, I'm late to the party on this one, part of the Winter Night trilogy, The Bear and the Nightingale by Catherine Arden, is amazing, and I need to read the other two immediately. I still haven't gone to spend my gift cards that I got for Christmas, and I'm like, I need to buy the other two of these. Um, so yeah, there's definitely, interestingly enough, even though it doesn't revolve necessarily around a painting, a priest, because this is Russian Orthodoxy, a priest comes to a town, okay, um, which Vasya's father, excuse me, has an official, I forgot his formal title, but he's a titled person, and therefore she is too, in a way. So they're a powerful family in more rural parts of Russia. And um, there's a priest that gets sent out there for lots of reasons. Um, and and he paints. And it's weird to me that both of the books I picked up have painting involved, and they both have Christianity and paganism involved. And yeah, so it's another book where, kind of like the Wakenhyrst book, there's glimpses in Wakenhyrst about like creatures, spirits, demons from folklore, but this one actually goes full bore because Vasya can see them. Okay, so her mother's it's because of her mother. Okay, that's not like a spoiler. It's on the back, basically, in my opinion. It's on the back. It's kind of like, yeah, and so, so Vasya can see them, and because of that, she's naturally kind of a different person, the way she behaves and everything like that, and the way she looks, even. So the villagers kind of are like, yeah, that one's weird, and it just gets worse over time. People thinking she's a witch and things like that. And I don't want to spoil it too much, but I found the way that they described certain kinds of magic really great, especially like to the middle towards the end of the book when we start to meet the frost demon and everything more thoroughly. And I really liked that. I really liked how Arden depicted how magic works, and I'm excited to see where it goes in the next two books. But yeah, it's just about Vasya and her family and her adventure beginning, basically. It's one of those, right? It's the first in a trilogy. So if you're interested in Russian folklore and, again, that tension between paganism and Christianity and how a priest, I swear, oh my God, how fear is used to control people and things like that and cause them to turn against one another. I want to say things, but I know that if I do, it'll be a spoiler as to how those dynamics play out in the novel. And I think they play out pretty classically in a way that I feel some people have probably thought of when they think of people going and converting people and forcing them to quit their old systems of belief, and the fallout that is potential from that. Like, when I was younger, I always thought, well, is it this? Or is it because they stopped doing this and so the bad things happen, right? So it kind of questions whether or not it's really okay to like stop some of your folkloric or pagan kind of practices because somebody tells you to. Which, as a Lutheran, I know that people would literally toss me into the fire for saying that, but I don't care because you're supposed to love everybody as best you can, damn it. Anyway, but yeah, it was neat. I guess I'm kind of giving it away right there. Let me put it this way. Priest shows up, priest tells people not to do things, puts the fear of God into them, and then everything starts falling apart. There, said it. So, interesting portrayal of why it falls apart, though. Yeah. So, again, both of these have female protagonists. I kind of hesitate to call Maud a protagonist, even though technically she is. Like, probably during most of the book, you're probably sitting there going, like, you don't hate her. You don't. But there are times where she's definitely cringy, which is to be expected because she's, from a nice family and is very sheltered, and you have to keep that in mind when you're reading with her. In that way, she's not out of character at all, which I do appreciate. But towards the end, you go, oh no, I like Maud. Like, you like Maud. You start to root for her more. So these books are both great. If you have time, or you are like me and you have some segments of less involved physical therapy, please be careful. Pay attention to what you're doing. Yeah. Or when you're at the gym, even, again, be careful. Pay attention to what you're doing. And you're like, oh, I want to read books while I'm doing that because, like, when else am I going to do that? Or if they have these on audiobook, go ahead and check them out if anything I just described is your cup of tea. So this has been like a book bit. I promise I'll update sooner than this. I have been in a weirdly depressed funk. like most people, I think, during the new year, because you start like some new things, but you're also like, oh my gosh, like the whole year went by and I'm still, which is weird because I graduated, with a master's degree and I should be feeling more accomplished than this. But I think it's that general anxiety between graduating and then getting a job, or when you have a break from school and you want a job. I wanted to work all the way through college, but I was physically unable to. It's an overcast day. Sometimes when the weather changes here in the desert, it can really hurt me. So that aside, um, yeah. What kind of books do you read? Do you read the kind of books I do? What genres are you interested in? I'm kind of curious as to what my viewers read. Or do you read at all? If you don't, let me know. Or are you a person who reads mainly graphic novels, web comics, or manga? Any of those things I'd be happy to hear about, so let me know in the comments below. Have you actually read these ones too? Like, if you read these books, please let me know, because please do. So this is just Kelly with the Book Bits, and with eclectic entries. I'm tired. This is Kelly with eclectic entries, and take care of yourself as you're able, all right? I know that the beginning of the year can be tough on people because, again, I think it's like that whole expectation of all the things that you want to be and then all the things that you failed to be the year previous. So hang in there, okay? As you're able, okay? All right. Bye-bye.